The crystal chandeliers sparkled like imprisoned starlight, while a string quartet whispered melodies from the corner, and every patron in the grand ballroom appeared bathed in opulence. This was an evening where precious gems outshone human mirth, and the resonance of crystal flutes crafted an image of flawless elegance. However, amidst such splendor, an abrupt, piercing cry sliced through the harmonies. Horrified exclamations erupted as an influential figure, a titan of industry whose mere mention commanded respect across the globe, grasped at his chest before crumpling onto the gleaming hardwood. His descent was profound, absolute, and harrowing. The assembled elite remained motionless, their costly footwear anchored to the floor, their immaculate expressions crumbling. No one stirred. No one possessed the certainty to act. Yet from the room's periphery, a young server with quivering fingers and woven locks released her polished serving platter and darted toward the scene. Her identity was Clara. And within that singular instant, her destiny would transform completely. If you have faith in compassion, redemptive opportunities, and the subtle strength of common individuals ascending during remarkable circumstances, please pause to appreciate this content, distribute it among your companions, share your reflections below, and join Untold Stories. Your encouragement enables us to disseminate additional narratives that uplift the spirit. Clara had no intention of being present that evening. She had pleaded with her manager for additional hours because her younger sibling required medication they could no longer purchase, and her mother's financial obligations were strangling their household. The charity event seemed like an alternate reality to her, where crystal fixtures substituted for ordinary bulbs and joy replaced hardship. She transported appetizer platters with understated elegance, her obsidian eyes evading the attention of the affluent who seldom acknowledged her presence. Yet she had observed everything. The manner in which the magnate Leonard Hardgrave had maintained forced pleasantries throughout the evening, how his expression periodically contorted when he believed himself unnoticed. When Leonard fell, the assembly of privileged socialites, individuals who commanded financial institutions, corporations, and dynasties, remained frozen in terror. Mobile devices were raised, murmurs traveled throughout the space, yet nobody descended to ground level. Clara did. Her knees struck the marble, her hands pressing frantically against his torso as her pulse hammered within her chest. She possessed no professional expertise beyond a life-saving course she had once completed at her sibling's educational institution. Yet she retained every instruction, every technique. She applied pressure, calculating silently, perspiration streaming from her brow as the shimmering gowns and formal suits created a disturbed perimeter around her. "Please respond," she murmured, her tone wavering as she compressed repeatedly. Leonard's complexion was ashen, his mouth tinged with blue, and moments seemed to expand into eternity. She disregarded the shocked reactions, dismissed the fact that security personnel were demanding emergency services, ignored how the chamber became unfocused through tears stinging her vision. Her sole focus was a human being approaching death's threshold, and her only option was to struggle against pulling him back. The chamber, previously alive with extravagance, now pulsed with quietude. Clara's movements became more frantic, her breathing accelerating with each compression. She adjusted his position, provided rescue breaths, applied pressure once more. Several attendees averted their gaze, unable to observe. Others mumbled that the situation was beyond hope. Yet Clara refused to surrender. She considered her younger brother, how his chest expanded and contracted as he rested beside her nightly, how delicate existence could prove. She reflected on her mother's weary expression, her countless sacrifices. She contemplated what it signified to persevere when society anticipated nothing from your efforts. Then the miracle occurred. A subtle intake of breath, a slight movement of Leonard's fingers, a spark of consciousness in his gaze. Clara's ribcage constricted as comfort flooded through her, yet she continued until certainty arrived. Within moments, emergency responders burst into the ballroom, displacing guests aside. They assumed control with professional expertise, though one approached Clara and murmured, "You preserved his life. Without your intervention, he would have perished." The gathering burst into fragmented recognition, yet it wasn't the boisterous, thoughtless acclaim of spectators at entertainment. It carried hesitation, sentiment, almost remorse. These were individuals accustomed to purchasing remedies, not observing valor. Clara's shaking hands bore redness from exertion, her clothing saturated with moisture, yet her gaze blazed with something more powerful than fatigue. Leonard was transported to medical care that evening, and Clara departed home silently, retreating into the obscurity of her modest dwelling. She didn't dwell on the incident. She wasn't a champion, she convinced herself. She simply performed what anyone would have attempted. Yet reality proved that not everyone would have advanced. Not everyone would have risked failure before the most influential figures in the metropolis. The following dawn, her identity appeared everywhere. Server rescues billionaire at charity function. The headlines screamed. Her device chimed incessantly. Her confined existence suddenly illuminated by the harsh glare of fame. Yet Clara maintained her composure, fastening her work attire again, preparing for another day of service. What she hadn't anticipated was the development several days afterward. Leonard Hardgrave himself, pallid yet breathing, entered the exact establishment where she was employed. The venue became silent, utensils freezing mid-motion, as the industrialist approached the server who had preserved him. Clara directed her gaze downward, mortified by the scrutiny, yet Leonard raised her chin tenderly with the gentleness of someone who had witnessed mortality and emerged. He communicated with a voice heavy with authenticity, expressing gratitude not